Hare.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of the Hare Krishnas in Britain podcast. This is episode number 27. We can't believe we've almost made it to the 30th episode. And for this week's episode, we've returned to Scotland. I've missed Scotland so much over the last 2 years that we've decided to go back. And this week's guest, I'm really, really pleased to say, is a really good, I was going to say old friend, but that sounds a bit ageist, doesn't it? It's a good friend of mine, Rama Prasad Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Ram Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
And yeah, I think we probably first met around 5 or 6 years ago. And you've very kindly allowed me to stay at your house on a number of occasions, which is very kind of you. And we've been good friends for a number of years. And because this is our first episode, this is the first episode of the Hare Krishnas in Britain podcast in December, I've decided to try and get into the Christmas spirit by wearing this Christmas jumper. My first Christmas jumper in a number of years. I was kind of forced to buy it the other day. And I thought I'd wear it for this podcast to try and bring good cheer. So Ram, it's good to see you. So let's kick off because there's lots of great stuff we can talk about this week. Tell us a bit about you and where you're from.
Okay, so I was born in Edinburgh 64 years ago. And I went to deaf school after that, and then a public school afterwards. And then after that, worked in my dad's shop. It was a licensed grocer. Eventually became a wine shop. And so that was for about 14 years. And
wow.
Then Hare Krishna put a stop to that.
I can imagine. Yeah. So you're from Edinburgh. You worked in your dad's off license as a teenager?
Yeah, well, helping out Saturdays from 12 years old.
Wow.
And then joined up at full time when I was 18. I left school a little early, a few weeks early.
Okay.
Yeah. Didn't want to be on the brew, so.
Yeah. So I completely understand.
Yeah.
And tell us kind of how kind of Krishna consciousness came into your life. What's your history with Hare Krishna movement?
Okay. Well, started off in, I think it was 1969. And
long time ago. Wow.
Yeah. Feels like this last year, you know. Yeah, life speeds up, you know, it really does. And when you look back, it's like it just went by, it really did. But yeah, I was watching Top of the Pops, and like I normally did, Thursday night, 7 o'clock, and it was the devotees doing the Hare Krishna mantra. And I don't know who the DJ was at that time, you know, in that week. It was either Alan Freeman or Jimmy Savile. But anyway, it was on the Hare Krishna mantra, 45 RPM, and I couldn't make sense of it at all. I didn't hear the intro because I couldn't at that time. You know, the hearing aids weren't that good at that time, but they started, you know, Hare Krishna mantra, whatever, and I asked my mum, what's that? What are they doing? And she said, they are meditators. So, fair enough. Okay, so they were meditating. So that was it. And then the next time I had some contact with the mantra was when I was walking along the main street in Edinburgh on my way home from school. And that was in 1972.
Wow.
And that was a Hare Nama. I saw them on the other side of the road in Princess Street. And I boarded the bus and I could watching them through the window. There was three of them, one drum, the others were playing the kartalis. So, and could hear them through the bus window very easily. With that, fired up and jumping about, three of them. And the next time I actually did meet them, very shortly after, and let's see, it was June the 1972 when I saw them first.
So this was in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
You were 15 years old.
Old, yeah.
And you were walking home from school and you saw the devotees.
Yeah. And
do you remember who the devotees were that you saw?
I don't remember the very first one. The temple had just opened at that time. It wasn't the first landfall, that temple. The first one came to Dundee, as far as I understand. They stayed at 66 Petty Street in Dundee. And that's our top floor, I think, in the tenement. So, but this is the first temple, and that one was in Forest Road. So this Harinam came along, when I was walking again along Princess Street, and really took me by surprise. And it was just like, well, I don't know how to describe it, but Edinburgh at that time was a very staid and conservative city with a very, very strong church background. Whatever, maybe the Mason, please, the whole thing knocked together. So it was very grey and conservative. It's not like it is now. Now it's a complete 180 turn. Very cultural, very diverse.
Quite progressive. Scotland is yeah.
Yeah, and especially Edinburgh. It's very, Glasgow too, but more so Edinburgh, I think. And so anyway, at that time, very straight-laced. And this Harinam party comes, a big blaze of orange, this saffron, and the ladies following in the procession. And I couldn't hear the mantra at that, it was just a noise, And then this lady comes up to me and she hands me, it was SU45 of Back to Godhead. And I look at it. It's got Krishna in the front, playing the flute with the waterfall in the background. And she said, I want to give you this, but can you please give me money to cover the cost? And I wasn't really at first, wanting something that just shoved in on my face sort of thing. But I took a look at her garments. She was wearing a sari, but the green jumper was full of holes. It was torn. And I was thinking, God, they're poor, So I felt sorry. So I just said, okay, I'll take the magazine here. So I gave her all the money I had, except for my bus fare. It was 22.5 pence, 4 shillings and 6pence in real money. So, and then took that home. Now, I saw them again on Harinam a wee while later, maybe a few months later, I can't remember. And there was quite a few of them in that procession, maybe 15. And two of them came up to me and gave me a literature, and then they said, "Oh, give some money." So I was feeling a bit pushed into it, and then suddenly two cops came, and they said, "Did they force you to whatever?" And in those days, you were taught to respect the cops and tell the truth, tell everything. There was a different mood about policemen then. The people that you could trust then. And I said yes, because I was just saying the truth. And they said, right. And they just pounced on the devotees, and two others came along, and they were quite rough with them. And I felt bad because, what was I saying? I should have kept my mouth shut. And I think they got moved along or to the side or something. It was quite scary, actually. Well, for me, I thought, at that time, it was a bit off-putting as well. And who would look at me there was one looking at me. And it clicked years later who it was, because that face etched on me like a photograph. He had a very individualistic face. And that was Tribhuvannath. And he looked at me straight in the eyes, like, how could you? It was that kind of why kind of expression. And that very second, I felt really, really bad about it. I've spoiled the whole thing. So I felt that's my fault, kind of thing. But these things happen, you just don't know. And because in those days they got hounded by the police.
Mm.
If you were selling, I was actually asked to look at archives of the evening news, because they were doing a campaign against the Guranga campaign in the 90s. So I got asked, or was it the early 2000s? Yeah. I got asked to look at all the archives of the evening news for the years in the early 70s to find anything that might have something for them to be guilty of misrepresentation or saying some bad things about the movement. Because they did have a campaign in the 70s saying, we've got to get these guys out of town. They're making too much noise and things like that. So I looked and I saw some articles, and it said, this devotee, so-and-so, I can't remember the name, he was selling Sri Upanishads. So he was fined £60. That was a lot of money in those days.
In the 1970s, 1972.
We're talking 1973, so we could safely multiply that by maybe 18.
Well, when we spoke last week, I did multiply it, and it comes to £900. So in today's money, it'd be about £900,000 fine.
Yeah,
for distributing spiritual literature on the streets.
And you got done for doing leaflets as well.
Okay.
So the church and the police, they were together on this. So the church didn't like this kind of proselytizing or whatever happening.
Yeah. There was the kind of also the anti-cult movement in the 70s and the 80s, wasn't there? Largely run by evangelical Christians to, save children from the Hare Krishnas and other groups, cults.
Repeated itself in 2000. What's it? Yeah. 2002 or something. So we ended up writing letters to the evening news, and my letter got published actually.
This is the Edinburgh Evening News.
Edinburgh Evening News, yeah. And it was because this guy was, the anti-cult movement guy was saying, we kidnap children and or whatever, stuff like that. Can't remember. So I wrote that in order to stay in the temple, you have to get up at 4 a.m. You've got to chant the mantra for 2 hours. You've got to abstain from meat, sex, gambling, intoxication. You've got to, there's so many things, and so these are practically unfeasibly done in other circumstances, normally. So I put that one at a peep, as it were, with the letter. So that would help, but we haven't have any bother any more from the evening news. So
can we fast forward a bit to the 80s? So you first met the devotees in 1972 and then in 1973, but you didn't join the movement then, did you? Tell us a bit about the year that you joined and why you eventually joined.
If I could interject this one, 1980, or was it 81? I visited a temple for the first time. That was Soho Street.
Wow.
Because first of all, I had got some literature after the Harinam times. In 74, I got the Easy Journey to Other Planet, which explained also about the jiva, and that was quite interesting, as it were. It was quite deep. And then 1978 October, I got Science of Self-Realization, and when I opened the book, I just went into the pub, just opened the book. And it was the argument between Srila Prabhupada and Cardinal Danielou regarding meat eating. And I was looking at it and I thought, oh, okay, don't eat meat. So at that time, the thought, don't eat meat, a bit strange, at that time. Well, hardly any vegetarians in those days. So I just looked at it and I thought, yeah, that makes sense, So I decided to take the plunge a few months later, January 25th, 79, and that was Robert Burns' night, where we get served haggis and turnips and tatties. And I was in the pub, and the pub served it free. And I told everybody, like, this is my last time I'm going to eat meat. And the reactions I got was like anger, shock, all sorts. And they were telling me I was going to die and all that stuff. You don't eat meat. And so eventually I had to pacify them. And I said, look, let me do this for 3 weeks. And then I promise you I'll go back to eating meat. Okay. So they were happy with that. And then, but after that, nobody asked me. I just carried on, Been vegetarian ever since, But 8 years later, in 1987, on July the 10th.
Oh, I'm impressed how you remember the date, July the 10th, 1987.
Yes. That was Guru Purnim as well.
July.
July.
It sounds quite late for Guru Purnim, but I believe you if that's the case.
I've checked.
Okay.
Checked
wow.
Twice already. And it was Guru Purnim. Sometimes the calendar can push away in all directions, Guru Purnim. Although I didn't know that at the time. What happened was that I had got a book in a shop, Higher Taste, and there was a pull out in it, send away for free bump, as it were. And in the bump, it had, we can join Nama Hattas, as it were. And, by post, as it were. Not a personal thing, but more like a postal thing. So I just sent away for that, and I got this wee magazine thing, and it was the Nama Hat magazine, I think it was. And it was a photograph of Karuna Bhavan with the caravan that they had. It was the Airstream, I think, or maybe the sort of swan-shaped one. And I thought, yes, I think I'll go and visit. And I went on a wee cycle tour around Peebles, Biggar, and stuff like that. And then I phoned ahead a few days before. It's all right if I can just stay the night and just visit. Yeah, sure. But in those days, there wasn't much vetting or anything like that. It was just like, practically anybody can come. I believe that even in the early days that practically were pulled off the street to join the Hare Krishna.
So just in case anyone's not sure that's listening or watching, Karuna Bhavan is the ISKCON temple in Scotland. It's and it's about 20 miles. It's in a town called Lesmahago, and it's about 20 miles south of Glasgow. But
24, 26.
Good guess. I said 20. It's about a half an hour drive because I've done it a few times.
Yeah.
Okay, so you went to visit Lesmahago, beautiful town. Sorry, Karuna Bhavan, Hare Krishna temple in Lesmahago.
For the temple.
In July 1987.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I cycled there, and when I came to the village, it was like, I found it. We didn't have GPS then, and then came down the village. There was this, people about, and I was asking, "Where's this temple?" Because I couldn't find it, and it's a bunch of workers digging the road in the Abbey Green, and they took a look at me. It was just like, it's up the hill. You go up this way. It was just like Dracula movie when you come to the village.
That's what I was thinking.
Transylvania, and then it's up on the hill.
And you see,
the house.
Yeah.
That's the last one on the road. I thought, okay, it kind of made me feel a bit apprehensive. So, I was drinking a lot anyway, but I thought I better go for a pint. So I went to the Mason's Arms for a couple of Carly Spec cans in a pint glass, and then went up the hill after that, feeling a little emboldened. And in the first, when I got to the entrance bit, there was his name was Nick came out to greet me. He became Narayan Das, and then after that I just got given service straight away, and I got my first plate of cooked prasadam, and that was just like food from another planet for me. I've never seen food like that. It was totally different, and I thought it was some amazing stuff, really good, Anyway, I just stayed the night, and then I left the next day for Edinburgh. So, and then I got a letter to come to the Janmashtami program, and Balabhadra then was having his first round of initiation, and so I went for that.
So Balabhadra was the temple president at the time, and kind of the presiding guru as well.
Right.
He was an initiating guru, wasn't he, at the time?
It's the initiation.
Okay. Just in case anyone's not heard of him. Okay.
Yeah. So so I went for that, and it was so the initiations were on, happened in a wee marquee outside, and then after that, stayed the night, and I left the next day. It was Prabhupada's appearance day, and everybody was fasting till, I think, at that time, till the evening. And I was thinking, I just want to go home just now, I was thinking more about a drink, really. So,
okay.
So I just, they gave me some prasadam despite, the fast going on. So that was nice. And I got my first taste of tulsi leaf, which was quite mind-blowing, actually. I just felt blissful the moment I popped it in. So it was amazing. So anyway, that's I just went home, and then after that, I didn't hear anything from the temple, and I never thought about it until February the next year, 1988. I phoned up the temple, and I was thinking I need a break from all this drinking. I need to get on a health kick or something. Give myself a week to get away from all this. So I think I'll just go on holiday to a temple. That would be sure should work, something should happen. So I phoned them up, and that was agreed upon. That's okay. So I came, and next thing, I was thinking, it'll be just relaxing, just chanting, just do a wee bit of some service and things like that. And but in the end, I was getting preached to by Balabhadra, and he used the old fire and brimstone formula for it, which I needed actually. I had to be convinced, and so
evangelical Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Evangelical Gaudiya Vaishnavism.
Yeah. So that got me convinced, even though I was more frightened about what would happen to me if I didn't join full time. He wanted me to join full time, so and I kept putting it off. In the end, month after month, until finally I just decided, okay, I better go. And that was about 8 months, 10 months down the line. And so I joined in, and I was there for 13 months. But it wasn't easy because, sometimes you just want to leave, but yeah, that happened.
So what was it that attracted you to Krishna consciousness? I mean, you've talked a bit about your drinking, that you're drinking quite a bit. You were from a non-devotee family at Edinburgh. So what was it at that point? I mean, you must you were about 30 at the time. What was it that was attracting you to Krishna consciousness?
It's not so much the philosophy. It was the prasadam. That's the number one thing.
That's a good answer.
True, it's the prasadam. That's a secret weapon. Prabhupada said it.
I'll be honest. I can't remember which temples or which devotee homes, but at least 2 or 3 occasions over the last 4 or 5 years, I've had prasadam that's so good, the next day I feel like I've got a hangover. For those people that know
too much.
No, like when back in the day, when I used to drink alcohol, the feeling of a hangover is when you feel very overwhelmed the next day. You can't think, your head's all over the place. And on 2 or 3 or 4 occasions over the last 5 years, I've had prasadam that's so good. The next day, I feel like I've got like a prasadam hangover. Not with my stomach, but more with my mind and my consciousness. But it was so good, I'm just overwhelmed by it still. It's an interesting experience. I mean, I don't know, I can't remember which temples or which devotees cooked that prasadam, prepared that prasadam, but so what I'm saying is prasadam is very powerful.
It is.
Hugely powerful.
Yeah, it is powerful. I mean, it can purify your... The first thing to purify is the tongue. Then everything else follows. All the senses follow naturally. So if you've got the tongue engaged in prasadam and chanting too, then the success from that in being detached from all these unwanted things that you should not be taking, like alcohol. So you get a higher taste out of the prasad. And that's what every devotee knows, is that it's a higher taste. But it's the spiritualization of the food that takes place that causes this transformation. And yeah, you cannot underestimate the power of prasadam. It makes you feel content when you've taken it. It's not just like an ordinary strand that you take in and that's it, you know. It's something else. It's an experience. And you're not eating, you are taking it. You're just taking Krishna.
It's one devotee once described it to me that taking prasadam is a service in itself. You know,
Take service, because that's all you're supposed to take. You can't take anything else. But it is powerful. I mean, everybody's got a different reaction to prasadam, an individual one. You know, it's just like a relationship. And I have had some times when taking prasadam ended up with my having a fit of the giggles, or maybe feeling super elated and blissful, or practically flying. You know, sometimes you get these mystical experiences, and that goes with other services as well. For example, that can happen in Sankirtan. You know, I've had some one time, you know, when I was staying at the temple full time, I was in Sankirtan once in Carlisle, and I was having a hard time, you know, in the morning trying to get going. And I just been on the street about an hour so far, fruitless practically. And then this woman crosses the road. It's quite a wide street. And she just crosses the road in my direction. And suddenly I'm getting really blissful, you know, like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's overwhelming. All my senses are just going to pot. And charging up. And my mouth is starting to freeze. And then I try to say something to her, you know, about hitting her up for a donation. And I couldn't speak. I was going like that. No words, just a noise. And she became unintelligible as well. And she looked like this. And she reached into her purse and gave me a £20 note, a lot of money, in 1989. And I was like, I took the money and I thought, I've never had such a big donation. This is amazing. I just put it in my bag and I just pulled out the book. And I just went like that. And she went, like this. And then she just walked away across the street back to where she came from. And I was just like, that was amazing. You know, I couldn't understand what was happening, but I could not speak. And I was totally euphoric. It was like taking intoxication to a very high level, very high. And I looked around, and there was two Prabhus, Charidesna and Hoxia, they were there. And they said, he's in bliss, he's in bliss. And immediately, I just went, suddenly the clouds came back. And I said, no, I'm not. I was just making it a point of, didn't want to carry on. And that was a bit of Maya just shooting down, But it was just that kind of thing that happens, So you can get some things happening, When you go back to prasadam, you can get some wonderful experiences out of that. And it's amazing how much you can put away as well, because before I took prasadam, I wasn't a big eater, but I recognized prasadam for what it was and what it is. And, I ended up taking about 5 times as much. It's true. You can take a fantastic amount because it's prasadam. It's different.
So let's kind of fast forward, but also we're going to fill in some details. It's now 2021. So 34 years have passed by since you first went to Karuna Bhavan. And certainly I've known you for 4 or 5 or 6 years, and you've always been known, I think, in my eyes, you've always been known as a cook. You love prasadam, you cook. You've been serving at Karuna Bhavan, and ironically, maybe it's not ironic, you now live in Les Mahega, don't you?
Yeah, I've got. Yeah, I live in my own house in Les Mahego. So yeah,
just around the
be
corner
near the
from
temple.
the temple. Yeah.
That's the whole point.
Yeah, which is great. So tell us a bit about. So you were attracted by prasadam. 34 years have just instantly passed by, and you're still in Les Mahego. Beautiful town. So what have your main services been at Karuna Bhavan? What have you been doing basically for all these years? How are you involved with the local ISKCON community there?
Well, the main thread of service, the main service I've done over the years, if you think about continuity, is going for boga or food in Glasgow. That was since early '89. I think it was February, and it was to go to the fruit market. And Gurdruma Bihari Prabhu, he's at the manor now. He was my mentor when I stayed at Karuna Bhavan, and we used to go out to visit shops and the Indian community. And so it was suggested that we go to the fruit market and see if there's anything lying about. It might be useful for the kitchen. And so that was the very start. So we went round and we found a bag of potatoes and put that in the van. We had this old red GPO van. And then we saw a pile of celery. And I went to the pile, and this security guard came along. And in those days, they had the hats, and it's just like Fulton, Mackay, and Porridge, that kind with his stash, comes up, says, put that back, So I had to, but he didn't see the sack of potatoes in the back, so that was good. So that was our first mission to the fruit market. We came back with the potatoes, and the next morning we had it in Subdi. And I said, oh, that's the best potatoes I've ever had. And somebody else said, no, that's because you found it. You're just thinking like that. But after that, we started going begging from the stalls. And Groomer was very good. He's a very, very much a people man. And he could cultivate the stall holders and get them to give on a regular basis. So after he stopped that service, I would be going along and going around the stalls and asking for donations. And with varying degrees of success, but certainly Goodrummer was very good at that. So so after that was just begging, and sometimes you'd see piles of stuff that was put aside. And in those days, before the economic crash of 2008, you could afford to do that, just shove them to the side, even though there was plenty of good stuff. And we used to take back quite a lot of good stuff. So, but in recent years, after the economic crash, they stall holders would start sorting through their throwouts to make up boxes. And in the end, there was just rubbish lying about, so we ended up eventually having to make purchases. But we did get a lot for nothing over the years. And we had about, up to about 20, 25 devotees to feed. So
wow.
Yeah, they needed quite a lot. So that was my main service. In 2002, for about maybe till 2007, I was the greenkeeper for the temple ground. So with lawnmowers and trimmers, that sort of thing. I'm just trying to remember. Oh yeah. Also working in the kitchen. I did some kitchen work when I was staying in the temple. So that was my, what would you say, my first venture into temple cooking at that time. And over the years, it helped out on that. And then I started cooking in the kitchen proper after my second initiation. Cook deity boga and general boga as well for the devotees,
And you've so just so we'll kind of let the listeners and the viewers know, when did you receive first initiation and when did you then receive second initiation?
First initiation was in 2008 on January the 19th. And I had my father along for that, my brother as well. And so that was a nice event. And I got to, do the fire pit, make it up, get that ready. And my father came along, and my Guru Maharaj, Srivaram Swami Maharaj, he asked my father permission if he could take myself as his disciple, to which my father said emphatically yes. So that was nice.
That's a relief.
Yeah, everybody was laughing. So yeah, it was. So that was my initiation. So I got my name. I didn't hear it first time when I was given the bead. I had to ask my Guru Maharaj to repeat, with the explanation and so on. So done there, got my beads, and so I got called Rama Prasad. I found out afterwards, and then so that's a fitting name for me, given my capacity to take prasadam in large quantities. So it's got a sense of humor. So
great, fantastic.
And I got my second one 10 years later.
So 2018, I actually remember the time of your second initiation. I mean, I didn't attend, but I remember was your second initiation at Bhaktivedanta Manor?
Well, not strictly in the manor. It was at
It was around
I
London.
can remember her house, but yes, it was January the 9th, 2018.
Okay.
And,
Yeah, I remember talking to you at the manor. I think either just before the ceremony or just after. I can't quite remember, but I remember. I remember. So let's talk a bit about something else, which I think is really fascinating. When we were preparing for this podcast, you told me that you've been involved with a Nama Hatta in Edinburgh.
Oh yeah.
Which has been going since 1993, I think.
August the 17th.
You're very good with dates. I forget dates completely. So since August 1993, you've been involved with the Nama Hatta, and that Nama Hatta is still going, I understand.
Yeah, it's still going in a different form, but it's we used to have house programs first, but Balabada considered that a house program might be off-putting for some people who would be too timid about crossing a threshold of private house, so an open public place would be the answer. And so that was achieved by Papa Prana Prabhu, present temple president at Karuna Bhavan. He approached George MacArthur at the Peace and Justice Centre at the corner of Princes Street and Lothian Road, which couldn't be more perfect. It's just the absolutely central spot. And the program starts at 6, and at that time the parking charges stop. So there was plenty of space in Rutland Street to park a car. So that means that could attract more people that way. So it took off very well. We used to get about 20 people generally, up and down, of course, but maybe 35 max coming for the meeting. And the room was really small. It was the size of a bedroom, and you're cramming all these people in there. So it's really small. Size of a bungalow bedroom, big bungalow bedroom, something like that. And but it went on for 17 years.
Wow.
Spot. The devotees on Sankirtan would be in Edinburgh on that day. And that also kept the numbers up, because we tell people about the meeting. And people would come. And it was successful. It made a few devotees that got initiated. A few of them, like Nityananda Mahajan, who's in Vrindavan now. Hare Krishna Das is, I think, in Mexico. He's from Mexico. To name but a few. We've also got Govinda at the manor.
He came through the Edinburgh.
Your godbrother.
Yeah, my godbrother, my dear godbrother. He's actually just given me 2,000 on chanting leaflets. That's another story. But so he actually came for the Edinburgh Nama Hatta, did he?
Yes, that was his first landfall, as it were.
Well, he's a very fired up devotee. He's very well respected.
That's right.
And liked in the movement. Yeah.
So he was one of the very first ones to come to that one in 1993.
Wow.
Came in one of the first weeks then.
That's quite amazing, because that's almost 30 years ago. So in 1993, I was 9 years old.
Right.
Govinda's obviously a bit older than me, but a little bit older than me. So obviously in different kind of incarnations, 28 years later, the Nama Hattas is still running.
Still running. that particular one stopped after 17 years. We had it on a Wednesday, every Wednesday, and I estimate 880 programs occurred there. Only been closed 3 times. 3 times only cancelled. We even opened on Christmas Day, Hogmanay, New Year's Day. You know, the show must go on. So it was good doing it. After that, we became nomadic, as it were. We went from one place to another. Methodist Church. There was the what's it called? Escapes me. But Methodist was the second location. Then after that, the Carlton Centre, which was a bit too far away from the centre, I thought. But anyway, things happened that way. And then after that, it was the Salisbury Centre. And now it's happening in the house in Bengali's house, Polly Mattidge's house, and then also once every 2 months at the St. Mark's Unitarians. There's a festival. We have a festival.
Wow. So do you mainly run that Nama Hatta, Rama Prasad?
Do I? Sorry.
Do you run it? Are you the main person?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
But it goes on, and it's going on very well.
So what's the secret to its success? Why, after almost 30 years, is it still running?
Well, I think that it's a case of, we've got, for example, Leela Purushottam and Rukmini. They carried on with the Edinburgh Sangha, keeping it going. And I think it's a case of, cohesion, everybody working together and just keep going. And also, I think that Nam Hat is very important because it's a different environment from temple environment. And you can get a very good result from that because in itself, it's very homely. It's very family orientated. Anyone can come, kind of thing. It's more relaxed and informal, but it's still, you get so much enthusiasm that comes along with it too, which is a necessary ingredient in running the whole show. It's different from a temple environment. A temple environment can be maybe too formal for some, or I don't know, whatever. Temple for some, and
I agree. I agree with that. I mean, if you look at the growth of, not the growth of Christianity, but Christianity is quite strong because yes, Christians go to church on a Sunday, but some of my Christian friends will say it's those kind of cell groups or Bible studies midweek where they form the strong relationships with other Christians.
Oh yes,
it's a time to kind of grow their Christianity, grow their faith in Christ. And so that's, and I know it's certainly in ISKCON that I mean, the Nama Hatta initiative, I think was set up by Jayapataka Maharaj, late 70s, early 80s. I think, sorry, no, that's Bhakti Vriksha. Sorry, that's Bhakti Vriksha. But so the Nama Hatta idea, is this idea of, I think Nama Hatta literally means the marketplace of the name, the Nama name Hatta marketplace, the concept kind of initiated by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. It's this idea of devotees meeting in houses, and it's much more of an informal environment where you can ask those kind of awkward questions. Hopefully, you feel comfortable to ask those awkward questions. I mean, I was really intrigued that you said this Nama Hattas has been running since 1993, because earlier this year on this podcast, I interviewed Mina. Mina lives in Swindon, and she helped set up the Swindon Nama Hatta in 1996, which is 25 years. So we thought that the Swindon Nama Hatta was the oldest one, but obviously it's the Edinburgh one. Unless anyone's watching this now or listening to this, if your Nama Hatta has been running longer than 28 years, please do send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Yeah, but yeah, it's amazing, Ram Prasad. 28 years is a long time. Very long time. So, but we've actually been chatting for almost an hour. I've got one more question for you, because I know you, like me, you're keen to spread Krishna consciousness and share it with others. And you're in Scotland, very cold Scotland. What can be done in Scotland and the UK and the rest of the Western world? What can we do to attract more Westerners to Krishna consciousness? What could we be doing?
Well, I think that being all-inclusive, this must be exercised here. All-inclusivity of all kinds of, for example, if you want to attract Westerners, of course we have to stick with what Prabhupada prescribed for Krishna consciousness. And I know that we have had, issues like the vegan thing and that sort of thing. And for ahimsa, whatever. And that's a divisive kind of thing, kind of issue. And it has created some problems as well. But I think it'll sort itself out in the end. The future is ahimsa. I'm not a vegan as such, personally. So but you can offer your milk to Krishna regardless of the source, if that's all you can get, because milk is important for developing the finer tissues of the brain for spiritual understanding, as delineated in the Bhagavad Gita and in Bhaktivedanta purport. So I still think in that way, but it's a personal matter. If you want to be vegan or non-vegan, whatever. That's something that's been on trial in various temples, trying the vegan approach. I don't know, how successful it would be again if we had kept going the old way, and that is by just being vegetarian. So I don't really know. And there are other ways of attracting Westerners, like through yoga programs and through mantra rock. It just depends, So if it's all inclusivity, and I think that the future in the Hare Krishna world, in the West and everywhere, is for all masks to join together and cooperate and chant together the Hare Krishna mantra. All the masks to come together, Gaudiya mass and all the paramparas, three parampara, etc. Rudra Sampradaya. The Sampradayas, that's it, sorry, I meant that. Sampradayas, all Sampradayas, everybody, because Hare Krishna is for everyone. That's the whole point. It's not about factions. It's not about disagreeing. It's all about chanting Hare Krishna together. Because it works whether there is a division or not. It doesn't matter what shape or form you come in, doesn't matter what creed. Prabhupada expressed that, and Bhakti Vinod Thakur's desire is that all the Sanghas, all the maths, all Sampradayas get together and chant Hare Krishna for Lord Chaitanya. That's what I think.
And certainly, I'd say probably over the last 2 or 3 years in the UK, we're seeing more of that. We're seeing more of the mixing of the mats. We're seeing, particularly in places like London, you're seeing a devotee from ISKCON going to an ISKCON temple, then in the evening they go on a Harinam with their Narayana Maharaj friends or their Srila Sridhar Maharaj friends. And it's certainly amongst the younger generation, it's more of a common thing now. It's more common than people think. And, you know, I've held the view for a while that ISKCON isn't going to take over the world. There won't be an ISKCON New World Order. And actually, sometimes it's better to work well, not sometimes, always it's better to work together to try and, you know, identify our strengths. You know, ISKCON in the UK has got 10 or 11 temples, and parts of the country are definitely untouched by ISKCON. There are even parts of London that are still untouched by ISKCON, whereas other mats have temples there. So allow them to preach, allow them to distribute prasadam. We're all in Bhaktivinoda Thakur. We don't even have to go as far back as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We just have to go as far back as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, which is not that long ago, really. We're all in his family. We're all his grandchildren, great-grandchildren, you know, spiritual. So yeah. So it's quite comforting to hear you say that. I mean, there's certainly you know, Kripa Moya Prabhu, who's an ISKCON guru, he's quite open to this. He went to the Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat Temple in August to give a talk, which was nice. And his daughter, Janavi Harrison, who's a well-known singer, is also quite openly in favor of this on social media. If anyone out there who's a progressive voice in the Hare Krishna movement, join the Progressive Vaishnavism Facebook page. It's quite it's quite inclusive, which is what Rama Prasad is talking about. There's very few conservative voices there. So no, and that's really encouraging. And I love the fact that you started with being inclusive. You know, that was the thing you first said. And that's very important because all of us, you know, even me, we all have innate prejudices. We don't even realize it sometimes. They're from since birth or previous lives. You know, we might have an innate prejudice towards a type of person. We don't even realize it. And ultimately, you know, we want the people of Scotland to all visit Karuna Bhavan. I mean, there won't be room, but we want them all to visit, don't we? And we want them all to chant Hare Krishna. So I find that really encouraging. And you mentioned veganism, which was an interesting one, because certainly I think this is true, but Glasgow, up the road from you, is the vegan capital of Europe, I think, isn't it?
Well, I've heard stuff like that, but I don't know if there's any backup for that.
I mean, one stat I was told, I didn't read it, one stat I was told was that between 18 to 30-year-olds, 1 in 4 of them are vegan, which is a lot, in Glasgow. And I've been at Glastonbury. So Glastonbury Festival is quite a young, progressive, left-leaning audience. And a lot of the people that come to the Hare Krishna tent say they're vegan. And even when I explain that the milk is from protected cows or it's a himsa, they still actually won't take it.
Yeah.
They're from a very materialistic point of view, you know, they're very vegan. Okay. We believe it or not, we've been chatting for a whole hour. Rampa, it's really good to have you on the show this week. I have to confess, I haven't been to Scotland for 2 years because of the pandemic. And I've said this, I'm going to say this publicly now, probably at all the 10, 11 ISKCON temples in the UK, Karuna Bhavan is my favorite, because it's just very homely. And I love, it's got beautiful scenery and beautiful deities, Gaurnatai deities. And I just like it. I've always felt more comfortable in smaller crowds than bigger crowds. And they got great devotees such as yourself living in Les Mahego. Great. So I think Rampa, thank you so much for being the guest number 27
Thank you very much for having me
on this week's edition of the Hare Krishnas in Britain podcast. So thank you everyone for tuning into this week's edition. If you're watching this on YouTube, please do watch it several times. Please do like it. Please do put a supportive comment. If you're watching this on Facebook, please do share it with your friends and your family. Please do like it, love it, or care for it, and also put a comment as well. And if you want to be a guest on a future edition of the Hare Krishnas in Britain podcast, please do send us a message. And of course, Rama Prasad mentioned briefly his kind of keenness for different mats to chant together. And many of you know I've written a book this summer called The Hare Krishnas in Britain, same name as the podcast. And it details, I think it's possibly the only book that details all the different mats in Britain today. Believe it or not, there are 20 of us. There are 20 different branches and sub-branches of Gaudiya Vaishnavism in the UK. Whoever thought Britain would be so colourful? Okay, thank you everyone, and I'll see you on next week's edition. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.